Hello, my wonderful, beautiful friends. Guys, welcome back to another episode of r/ProRevenge. Where in this episode, you'll hear what happens when a shady client hires OP to do some work and refuses to pay him in the end. Guys, the revenge is absolutely fantastic, and so are the other two stories that are paired with it. I hope you enjoy the super satisfying revenge stories today, and do hit that subscribe button for future stories, my friends. Let's dive in. This story happened in the early 2000s. I used to be a freelance front-end developer and a search engine optimization guru. Back then, getting on the front page of Google search was pretty simple. Link exchanging was popular, but it was risky. Now, I never did that, but I did have a single website that had serious PageRank clout due to it being linked as a trusted source, directly from one of the top and most trusted websites in the world. I would use this website for the best clients, to get their PageRank and position leapfrogging other, older, and more trusted websites. One day, I was approached by someone who we'll call Bob. Now, Bob sold travel packages. Bob needed to revamp his basic existing website with a complex website, built with pretty tricky back-end coding. Now, I could do the front end, but I had to hire a back-end developer to build the functionality. Bob had a major launch in a month's time, and it has to be ready. I usually ask for a 25% deposit up front, but Bob said no. He was stung by the last developer, and he wasn't going to lose any more money. Now, from the moment I met Bob, my gut was telling me that this was going to end pretty badly. But the problem was, I needed the money, and it was worth quite a lot of money for me and the developer. So with that, I skipped the deposit on the promise that he paid in full before it went on the server. Bob agrees. For an entire month, we worked all day and sometimes all night to get this done in his time frame. We ended up finishing with a day to spare, and I had never been so proud of what we'd achieved. I was honestly excited to show Bob. The next day, I sent the link to my test server, and he phoned me to discuss it. Bob said everything looked good, but he was worried his server's PHP version may be too old to run it. Now, I assured him it would, but he said he was too scared that it won't, and we would scrub our hands off it. We went backwards and forwards, but he was insistent the site has to be uploaded and tested on his server before he parts with any pennies. I chatted to my developer. He didn't like the idea either, but we agreed that we would upload our work onto his server. Bob gave me the details and the server login, and I uploaded his newly created site. I then sent him a message, told him it was live, and then nothing. I sent several emails and then phone calls. The emails went unanswered and the phone went straight to voicemail. Sensing a major problem, I rushed to my computer, fired up my FTP program to delete our work on his server, and we find out access was denied. Bob had locked us out, and the following day, he went live with our work. For several days, I tried phoning until one morning, he answers the phone and says, "Listen, I'm not ever gonna pay you, and there's nothing you can do about it." And then Bob hangs up. Now, rage was a good word for my feelings. I was shaking while still holding the phone in my hand. For the next hour, my rage of expletives was growing in complexity. As I sat there figuring out what to do, it then hit me. Revenge will be mine. So I decided to register a new domain name, which was Bob's travel domain name plus sucks at the end. If Bob's website was called bobstravel.com, I had purchased bobstravelsucks.com. I then upload our work, basically an exact mirror of his live website, onto my new domain. I used my all-powerful mega PageRank domain to link my new sucks domain. Within a month, my website jumped above his website in Google search for every conceivable search phrase you would use for the packages he sold. No matter what you typed in, my bobstravelsucks.com website was always above his real business website. During that month, I create a second website, which was Bob's full name with sucks at the end. On the second website, I posted what happened, screenshots of his emails, and warning everybody what a con man he is. Bob had a somewhat unusual first and last name. Again, within a month, my website was above his own personal website. About 4 months later, I get a cease and desist email from a solicitor's firm. A quick Google search shows that the firm was made up and didn't exist. I reply back with, "I am not ever going to take them down, and there's nothing you can do about it." So every now and then, I would get emails from people he had conned. He would take their money for a travel package, but never book their package. I would put those on both of my websites, making sure those juicy, important keywords, consisting of his full name and company name, were spread across each negative review. A few more months pass, and I get an anonymous email linking to a new domain called mynamesucks.com. I'm told to remove my two websites, and he will remove this new one. A quick search, and what do you know? It's not even listed on Google. No one could find it amongst the tens of thousands of other websites. I then reply back for a second time with his comment to me. As each month passes, I'm getting more and more people emailing me saying they've been ripped off. I keep adding them to my website. It turns out the travel agency world is well regulated and they start an investigation into Bob's company, using my websites as their main tool. So I then get a call from Bob, and Bob is not a happy Bob. In fact, Bob is more of a desperate Bob. Looking at this text now, I know you can almost hear the despair and resentment in Bob's voice. Bob pleads and begs me to pull the sites down. Now, not only is he being investigated by the Travel Agency Association, but he has some very important friends that didn't appreciate the bad press he was causing in their circles. He offers to pay me the money he owed. Nothing more, just what he owed. For the third time, and with a massive smile on my face, I say, listen, I'm not ever taking them down and there's nothing you can do about it. Roll on a few months later, and I discover his travel company has been removed from all travel associations. No matter what you typed in Google, my website outranked his, and all the bad reviews on my site were the first thing his potential customers would see. I had crippled his business so badly that it went bust. Now, here's the funny part. So, during the collapse, one of his ex-employees contacted me and told me how hard he had worked to get my websites off the first page. Bob had registered dozens and dozens of other domains in hopes that some would jump ahead of my bobstravelsucks.com websites and bobsnamesucks.com. Little did he know, only the top dozen websites in the world could jump it. And apparently, his property was tied into the loans on the failing business and he had lost his house too. It took me just about a year to turn his business from a cash cow to a dead cow. So the moral of the story, if you ever think to mess with a web developer, don't. My friends, I appreciate this revenge so much. The fact that OP was a master at search engine optimization and used his skills to outrank the website that Bob stole from him with bobstravelsucks.com is absolutely brilliant. Like, imagine having thousands of people searching up your business on Google, only to have the first website that pops up telling everyone what a horrible person you are. So with that said, OP has an update and it reads, so many of you are saying that I should have taken the money and not pulled the sites down. At that point, it wasn't about the money. He thought he could simply buy his way out of it after pretending to be a solicitor and then trying the same thing on me. Him knowing I didn't care about the money anymore must have driven him crazy because money was all he cared about. He then knew that he could do nothing to stop his business going down the pan, and all he could do was watch it fall apart around him. Nobody likes a lunch thief, and I had one of the most aggressive at my office. There were rumors for a few months leading up to the incident of someone going around and taking people's lunches. Just about every day, someone different would complain that their lunch was missing. It even happened to me once or twice, but I figured, hey, it's a big office. A few people are probably going to be careless and grab the wrong lunch and are too embarrassed to bring it back. Or someone else packs their lunch and they don't know what's in there, so it's not obvious they have the wrong one, or whatever. Most people just bought brown bags with their names on it anyways, or identical Rubbermaid Tupperware with a little piece of labeled tape on the side. It was easy enough to mix up. I had accidentally grabbed a wrong lunch once or twice, but I'd noticed before I got it open. However, other people weren't as forgiving, and a lot of them made complaints to HR. Now, they were blown off, and personally, at the time, I thought it was all much concern about nothing. But then it began. My wife enrolled in a French cooking class online, and just about every day, I was bringing fancy leftovers in for lunch. You'd think I was picking up lunch from a Michelin-starred bistro every morning. She really threw herself into the coursework. There were no problems for about 2 weeks, maybe 3, until one day, my lunch went missing. Considering what delicacies I had to look forward to, I was pretty miffed, but I did a once-over around the break room and didn't see anyone eating my lunch, so I figured someone grabbed my bag by accident and was too embarrassed to return it. Or they just saw how good things looked and, realizing it was their lucky day, didn't bring it back to the fridge. I wrote the mysterious stranger off, and accepted the loss and looked forward to dinner that night. Next day, I write my name on my lunch in extra bold lettering. I then jam the bag into the back of the fridge and feel peace of mind. I get there come break time and nope, it's gone. I was pretty upset, but I figured it was just a stroke of bad luck and I left it at that. What else could I do? However, the third day, out of an abundance of caution, I kept my lunch at my desk. It was a pain because I had to eat it fairly early in the morning to avoid spoilage, but at least I knew where it was. So I then get up to take care of some business down the hall, and when I came back, my lunch was gone. Unfortunately, that didn't help me narrow it down much at all because my desk is centrally located, so everybody's constantly passing by. At that point, there was no possibility of the theft being arbitrary, so I approached HR and filed a complaint. Their response, practically verbatim, was, "Employees' lunches are their personal property, and the company is not responsible for lost or stolen personal items." Now, the following day, my wife packed a cream-based soup that really had to be refrigerated. I was passing by the break room to check on my lunch practically every 5 minutes, and somehow it still managed to disappear. I was irate by this point and returned to HR and really blew my top. The best they could do was send out a memo reminding people to check the name on their lunch when removing it from the fridge. Now, the only suitable alternative to packing a lunch is going to the vending machine and buying wretched shrink-wrapped ham and cheese sandwiches. I vented daily to my wife, but her only idea was to start bringing a regular sandwich and apple again, to dissuade the thief and to get him to move on to other lunches. So determined to prevent this low-life scum from downgrading the quality of my lunch, I hatched an elaborate plan. But then the pandemic hit, and I forgot all about the whole saga. I worked remotely for months and months. Then we returned, and after all that happened globally, this was the last thing on my mind. But on my first day back, exhausted from small talk and tired of being at a desk all day, my lunch was gone. Now, this was particularly a sore point, because my wife and I divorced between my last lunch dilemma and the present one. So I did not appreciate being reminded of any past threads involving her. I pretty much flew into a blind rage at this point, especially seeing that stupid worthless memo about checking the lunch bag names posted in the break room. I was feeling so helpless and so hungry and so alone, as it was me and my lunch against the world. I stormed out and was determined to return the next day with a plan. So I came in the following day with an empty lunch bag, and I checked closely to make sure that no one was watching, and I switched the contents of the HR person's lunch bag into my lunch bag. So now their lunch appeared to be my lunch. They'd packed a regular brown bag, so I just discarded all of that and I left and I waited. Now, I knew this was a pretty big gamble because it was contingent on the theory that the thief was avoiding me while having lunch, but not wary of anyone else. So they would eat it out in the open if there were no risk of bumping into me. So I made a big show of going around the office announcing that I was headed out for a meeting and would not be back until at least 3 p.m. I even went to the trouble of moving my car out of the lot to a space 2 streets over, where I then sat in my car and worked remotely for several hours before sneaking back into the building and up the stairway. I then sat in the stairwell just outside the break room where you can hear chatter and can't be seen. So after about 20 to 30 minutes of waiting, I heard it. The sweetest sound I'll ever hear in the office. HR says, "What the heck, Kyle? That's my lunch." The lunch thief then responds with, "Nah, that's not your name on the bag." HR then screams, "Give me that," and I'm assuming grabs the bag and sees my name. And then they say, "Yeah, let's go to my office for a chat." The HR rep later called me in as well and said that they were aware of my break room hijinks, but it was obvious that the point still came across loud and clear. They then warned me that it's a violation of policy to move another employee's lunch, and it took every ounce of self-control for me to keep from saying, "I thought our lunches were our personal property, and the company was not responsible for them being lost or stolen." They informed me that they had located the thief and things would be handled accordingly. But, better than whatever write-up they might have been able to issue Kyle, his reveal as the lunch thief occurred in the front of the whole break room. So word quickly spreads as to who had been stealing everyone's lunches earlier that year, and now he's the office pariah. He was also in line for a promotion, and that promotion is indefinitely off the table. Also, I earned brownie points for exposing him, but at the end of the day though, I didn't do this for credits or even the sweet, sweet, sweet revenge. I did it to get my lunches back. My friends, I have said this once and I'll say it again. I really don't know how people can steal and eat other people's lunches without feeling a sense of guilt. Like, dude, you didn't bring that lunch and it clearly has a name on it, so why the heck are you eating it? And I hope those free lunches were worth that promotion going out the window, Kyle. So, I'm a teacher, and when I was younger, I would take summer jobs to supplement my income. One summer, I worked for a bricklayer named Jerry, and heard an amazing story. Now, the setting for the story was a community of small rural towns, which only had one brick contractor. Jerry began his career as a bricklayer, working for this contractor who was a real jerk. Jerk and Jerk's son, who owned the company, would harass, belittle, and humiliate all their employees on a regular basis. No work was ever good enough, and employees were told that they weren't worth what they were getting paid. Now, not only did Jerk mistreat his employees, but he was equally rude to all the other subcontractors and the general contractors who hired him. And since he was the only bricklayer in the community, there was nothing anybody could do about it. So needless to say, the turnover rate for the brick business was very high. The only person that stuck with Jerk and the company was Jerry. Jerry told me that his father had instilled a self-confidence in him that Jerry could do anything he set his mind to, and that he should not evaluate himself according to what others said, but rather by the facts. Although Jerry was belittled by Jerk and his son, as were all other employees, Jerry was becoming a very good bricklayer. Now, Jerry knew he was good. Jerk knew Jerry was good, but Jerk did not know that Jerry knew he was good. Not only was Jerry a good bricklayer, he was very respectful to the boss who disrespected him. Jerk thought that Jerry was a naive pushover who was buying his head games, and that would prove to be a huge mistake on his part. So one day, Jerry was doing an exceptionally good job of laying brick. Not only was his craftsmanship amazing, he was laying brick at a high rate of speed so that he was making his boss a lot of money. And of course, Jerk and son were belittling his work as though he was doing the very opposite. This scenario was being observed by the general contractor of the project. So after work that day, the general contractor asked Jerry to stay behind so he could talk to him. Jerry finds out that the general contractor hates working with Jerk. He told Jerry that he had heard Jerk and his son belittling him, and told him that he disagreed with everything Jerk was saying. He asked Jerry if he had ever considered going into business for himself, and Jerry said that he would love to do that someday. General contractor then said that he would loan Jerry the money to buy a mixer, which was the most expensive piece of equipment needed to start a brick business, if Jerry would indeed start the said business. The only hitch was that Jerry would need to pay for the mixer whenever he could, and that he would subcontract under the general contractor. Jerry agreed to those terms and prepared to begin his new venture. Jerry respectfully told Jerk and his son his plans and gave his notice. The two mocked Jerry ruthlessly and laughed him to scorn. Jerk told Jerry, "You'll be back in 2 months, begging to return to your job. You'll never make it as a subcontractor. You are the worst bricklayer we've ever hired." So 2 months later, rather than collapsing as Jerk predicted, Jerry was still in business and going strong. 1 year later, Jerry's business was booming, and drunk Jerk shows up at the site that Jerry was working at and begged him to come back to work with Jerk and son. Jerk admitted that Jerry was the best employee he's ever had, and Jerry asked, "Why didn't you ever tell me that when I was working for you?" Jerk, of course, couldn't answer the question, and Jerry obviously didn't accept the offer for employment. 2 years after beginning the adventure, Jerry heard that Jerk and son went out of business. Jerry said that he never intended to harm Jerk and son when he accepted the general contractor's offer. He said that looking back on things, he realized that he had become Jerk's greatest nightmare. I can't say that the general contractor intended no harm. I thought the most amazing thing about the story was that how Jerry maintained his self-esteem in spite of all the ridicule. I also gained respect for Jerry's father, who instilled an unshakable self-confidence in Jerry. My friends, Jerry sounds like a great guy who got the big break that he deserved. Props to him for coming into work every day and biting his tongue and enduring all that crap from Jerk and his son. And I'm really glad their company went under. They definitely deserve that. And that, my friends, brings us to another end of r/ ProRevenge. Guys, I hope you enjoyed the stories today, and if you did, hit that like button and subscribe if you aren't subscribed. If you missed the last episode of r/ ProRevenge, I will link it right here. OP's business partner backstabs him, steals from him, and slanders him, and then ghosts him. And then OP comes back to destroy the guy after a decade. Guys, check it out if you haven't, because it's a wild ride, and I'll see you guys in the next one. I love you.